What do you do when the phone stops ringing, the holidays grow quiet, and you realize that somehow, somewhere along the way, you've been left alone? You never plan for it, you never see it coming. But there it is. The empty chair across the table, the unreturned messages, the long days without anyone asking how you are. Let me tell you something I wish someone told me a long time ago. Growing old doesn't hurt because of the years. It hurts because of the silence. The silence that creeps in when the noise of family fades, when the laughter of children becomes a memory, when the person who once knew your stories is no longer there to remind you who you are. I remember the first morning I woke up and truly felt it. Not just being alone, but being left. The kids were grown. The house that once echoed with footsteps and voices was now still. My wife had passed, and the people I once called every week, well, they had their lives now. I sat at the kitchen table with a hot cup of coffee, steam rising, silence pressing. And I thought to myself, is this what's left? I had lived a full life, raised a family, worked hard, paid every bill, showed up when I was needed. But no one had prepared me for the space that would be left behind once all that was over. No one told me what it would feel like to go days without touching another hand, hearing your name said with care, or laughing alongside someone who remembered your younger face. And it's not that people stop loving you. It's that life moves on. And somehow it moves around you instead of with you. That's the part no one tells you. When you're young, you assume you'll grow old surrounded by warmth, by children who visit, by old friends who stay, by familiar voices in your kitchen. But the truth is, life has a way of taking its own path. And sometimes it takes people away from you through distance or change or time or loss. And if you found yourself here, alone, perhaps not completely, but quietly, I want to say something clearly. You are not broken, you are not invisible, you are not the only one. This happens to so many of us, more than you think, but we don't speak about it. We don't say, I'm lonely. We don't say, I miss being needed. We don't say, I don't want to eat dinner by myself again. We stay quiet because we think we're supposed to be stronger than that, because we don't want to be a burden, because we're afraid of what it means to admit it. But there's strength in honesty. And if you're watching this, listening with your heart, I hope you'll believe me when I say this next part. Just because you're alone doesn't mean your life is over. Just because they don't call doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. Just because the chair is empty doesn't mean your table has no value. And I know it's hard. I know there are nights when the silence feels louder than anything you've ever known. Nights when even your memories feel too quiet. But I want you to know you are still here. And that means something. It means you still have light to give, words to speak, kindness to share, even if no one has told you that lately. Sometimes the world forgets, not on purpose, not out of malice, just out of motion, but here at Glowing Age we haven't forgotten. We remember the value of a quiet life, the courage it takes to keep going, the beauty that lives in a weathered face and a tender heart. If this message has stirred something in you, if you're still listening because a part of you recognizes this story, I ask that you like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. Not for me, not even just for you, but for all the others out there sitting in similar rooms, wondering if anyone understands. We understand. Now let me tell you something else no one tells you. When you're alone in old age, it's not just the lack of company that hurts. It's the feeling that you no longer belong anywhere, that your presence doesn't matter. But that's a lie. You matter, and you belong, maybe not in the places you once did. Maybe not in the way you used to, but you still belong to this world. You belong to every sunrise you witness, every cup of tea you enjoy, every bird that lands outside your window, every quiet prayer you whisper, every smile you give to a stranger. You belong in this moment right here, right now, because you are still living, still learning, still able to love. The world might be moving fast, people might be distracted, but that doesn't mean your story is over. It just means it's time for a new chapter. And maybe this chapter looks quieter, maybe it's simpler, but it can still be beautiful, maybe even more beautiful than you expect. Because now you're not chasing approval, you're not proving anything, you're not building, you're being, and there is something holy in that. You have time now not to waste, but to notice the warmth of the sun, the taste of your favorite bread, the rhythm of your breathing, the feel of the breeze on your skin. You have space now not to fill with noise, but to fill with meaning. And if you're willing, in the videos to come, I'll walk alongside you. I'll share what I've learned about how to live in the quiet, how to heal the ache, how to rediscover joy when the world seems to have moved on. But for now, just sit with this truth. You are not alone in feeling alone. And your life, even now, has more value than you know, so don't give up on it, please don't. Let's keep going together. There's a side of aging no one really prepares you for. It's not the gray hairs or the sore knees. It's not even the loss of work or routine. It's what happens when the world outside your window starts to feel like it's no longer yours. When stores get louder and faces get younger. When the places you once felt known begin to look unfamiliar. When your phone lights up less and your name isn't called as often. That's the unspoken reality of growing old alone. No one tells you that a time might come when you feel like a stranger in the life you built. You may have lived in your home for decades, but the street feels quieter now. You may still cook the same meals, but no one's there to say how good it smells. You may sit in the same chair each night, but it creaks a little louder without another one across from it. And while the world keeps spinning, your part in it can feel like it's slowly fading. That's the ache so few talk about, that quiet invisibility. When you're young, people ask about your dreams. They listen to your stories. They want your advice. But somewhere along the way, it stops. The world gets busy. People grow into their own concerns, and somehow, without meaning to, you start to disappear. Not in a physical sense, but in a way that's just as painful. You walk into a store and no one looks up. You speak and no one quite hears. You show up, but it feels like no one notices. And that does something to the soul. It makes you question your place, your value, your presence. I remember one day standing in line at the pharmacy. A young man stepped in front of me, not out of rudeness, but because he simply didn't see me. And I thought, have I really become that invisible? It's a hard truth, but it's also not the full truth. Because while the world may move fast and while the spotlight may shift, your light hasn't gone out. It's still there, steady, soft, strong. You're not invisible because you've lost your glow. You're just living in a world that sometimes forgets how to see. But you can still be seen. And more importantly, you can still see yourself. And that matters more than you think. You see, aging alone doesn't just test your body. It tests your spirit. It asks you, will you still show up even when no one's watching? Will you still care for yourself even when no one's depending on you? Will you still speak even when your voice feels like it echoes? Because how you answer those questions, quietly, daily, becomes your new form of strength. It's easy to feel like you don't matter when no one needs you the way they used to. But maybe being needed isn't about usefulness anymore. Maybe it's about wisdom. Maybe it's about presence. Maybe it's about simply being a witness to life with all its small, sacred moments. Like the sun hitting your table just right. Like the way your favorite song still makes you close your eyes. Like the comfort of the mug you've held for years. These are not small things. They are evidence that you are still deeply connected to the life around you. So what do you do when the world forgets to ask you how you are? You ask yourself. You sit with your own soul. You listen to what it's been holding. You become the friend you've been waiting for. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most powerful kind of friendship there is. If you felt invisible lately, if this message has touched a part of you that's been quiet for too long, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. This isn't just a channel, it's a soft place to land. A reminder that even if the world forgets, we remember. And we see you, not for who you were, but for who you are, and who you are in this moment, in this breath, still matters. So stay with us, we're not finished yet. There's still more to say, still more to uncover, still more life to live, even in the quiet, especially in the quiet. There are things about growing older that no one warns you about. Not because people are trying to hide the truth, but because most don't know how to speak about it. And one of those truths is this. Loneliness in old age is not just emotional, it becomes physical. You don't just feel sad, you feel heavy. Your legs ache more, you don't sleep as deeply. Your appetite fades, you start to wonder if you're just getting older. But much of it is the quiet ache of being alone for too long. That's what no one tells you. The absence of conversation, of touch, of laughter, it doesn't just sit in your heart, it settles in your body. You feel it in your shoulders, in your back, in the sighs you let out without even noticing. And here's the other thing no one tells you, that ache, it can trick you. It can make you believe your best years are behind you, that there's no reason to try, that nothing new will come. But that's not true. You're not feeling this because you're weak. You're feeling this because you are human. Humans are wired for connection, for touch, for rhythm, for meaning. So when those things disappear, your soul sounds the alarm. That's not failure. That's your heart calling you back to yourself, back to something more than just surviving each day. No one tells you how loud the silence will be when it's just your footsteps in the hallway, when it's just your fork on the plate, when it's just your breath in the night. But I will tell you this, you don't have to fill the silence with noise. You can fill it with intention, with soft music that soothes you, with words you whisper out loud to yourself, with a journal that becomes your companion. You can let the silence become a space of healing, a place where you finally say what you were never allowed to say, a place where you feel what you were always too busy to feel, a place where you remember yourself, not the roles you played, but the person you are. That's what no one tells you, that being alone isn't just a punishment. Sometimes it's an invitation to come home to yourself. I once met a man who told me something I'll never forget. He said, "I used to think being alone meant I was forgotten. Now I see it as the first time I've really met myself." That's what happens when you stop running from the quiet. You start hearing your own voice again, and it's wiser than you think. If this message is sitting heavy on your heart, or if it's beginning to lift something from your shoulders, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. Not because it fixes everything, but because it helps you remember. You are not walking this road alone. And now let me say something else no one told me, but I'll tell you. Joy doesn't end just because people leave. Hope doesn't expire because years have passed. Love doesn't disappear because a house has grown quiet. These things are still in you, maybe buried, maybe sleeping, but still there. You can still laugh, still cry, still notice the way the light moves through your window at dusk. You can still make something beautiful out of the life you have now. Don't wait for someone to walk back through the door. Don't wait for the phone to ring. Begin where you are. Begin with a walk, a story, a breath, a candle. Begin with remembering that you are not less because you are alone. You are still whole. You are still here. And what you do next, no matter how small, can become the first step into something you never expected: peace. Not the peace of everything going back to the way it was, but the peace of knowing you can carry yourself forward anyway. And that is what no one tells you. But now you know, so breathe and keep going. When you're left alone in old age, the world may not stop, but you do. For a while at least, you stop planning, you stop reaching out, you stop imagining new things, because it feels like there's no point. But here's what I've learned after many years of walking through quiet rooms and one-sided conversations. You can start again. Not with a bang, not with fanfare, but with small steps that say, I still care about my life. So what can you do? Not to erase the loneliness, but to live with it in a new way. The first thing, feel it. Feel the ache. So many people try to outrun it, turn on the TV, fill every moment with noise, busy themselves with meaningless tasks. But when you give yourself permission to feel, something begins to shift. You soften. You stop judging yourself for being human. Tears aren't weakness. Silence isn't shame. So take a breath. Sit with the ache. Say it out loud if you need to. This is hard. And then take one gentle step forward. Maybe you open the curtains. Maybe you water a plant. Maybe you call the pharmacy just to ask a question. Anything that reminds you, I am still part of this world. You don't have to move fast. You don't have to do much. You just have to participate in your own way. And once you've done that, once you've named the loneliness and made one small gesture toward life, there's something else that helps. Reclaim one small joy. It could be music, the old songs you used to dance to in the kitchen. It could be baking something that makes the house smell warm. It could be sitting on the porch and listening to birds. Joy doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be shared. It just has to be real. And you are still allowed to feel it. Even if no one sees you smile, even if no one shares the moment, even if it passes quickly, you are still allowed to smile. Then when you're ready, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, you can take a deeper step. You can connect. Write a letter, call someone, say hello to the neighbor across the street. It may not lead to a deep friendship, but it will remind you that connection is still possible. Not every conversation needs to be long. Not every gesture needs to be returned. What matters is that you reach out. Because when you do, even in the smallest way, you reclaim a piece of yourself that loneliness tried to take away. If you've ever felt like giving up, If you've ever looked at the clock and wondered if anything will ever change, let this message be a hand on your shoulder. You are not stuck, you are simply paused, and you can move again. If this message finds you in one of those paused moments, I ask that you like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. Not for us, for you. So you remember that someone out there sees your quiet courage, your slow steps, your willingness to keep showing up even in the silence. So what can you do when you're left alone in old age? You begin. Gently, quietly, kindly. You begin again, and in those small beginnings you might find something you haven't felt in a long time: hope. Not the loud kind, but the kind that feels like warmth, the kind that reminds you you're still here and you still matter. Somewhere along the way, after the silence has settled in and the routines have become quiet, a deeper truth begins to rise. Even in the stillness, life is still offering itself to you. Not through grand gestures or loud celebrations, but through presence, through the simple act of being. That's the most powerful thing I learned after being left alone in old age. Not how to fight the loneliness, but how to live with it. How to let it soften me instead of harden me. How to let it teach me instead of defeat me. And that's what I want to share with you now. The hardest part isn't the emptiness of the house. It's the belief that nothing meaningful can happen within that emptiness. But it can. I remember one evening, not long after I accepted that I was living this chapter alone, I lit a candle and sat down with a warm drink. I didn't turn on the TV, I didn't reach for my phone, I just sat there breathing. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the ache of absence. I felt peace. That moment wasn't planned, it wasn't perfect, but it felt sacred. And that's when I realized presence is meaning, being here, being awake, noticing the way the tea smells, the way the light lands on the floor, the way your body exhales after a long breath. These things matter, you matter. And sometimes that's the beginning of a new kind of joy, not the kind that demands anything from you, just the kind that welcomes you home to yourself. There's a myth that being alone means something is missing, that it's a sign of failure, that you've been forgotten. But here's what I know, being alone is just a circumstance. It's not a reflection of your worth. You can be deeply loved and still live in a quiet house. You can have a full heart and still eat dinner by yourself. You can be at peace even if no one checks in today. Because you are the keeper of your own company, and you are more than enough. If this message reaches the part of you that's been wondering if you've been left behind, I want you to take a moment right now and breathe. Let your breath remind you you're still here. You've survived the loss, you've walked through the quiet. You've shown up for yourself every single day. And that is a kind of strength the world doesn't always see, but I see it. And I want you to see it too. If you're still with me, and if these words have given you comfort, please like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. Because we're not just sharing stories here. We're building a place where the quiet is honored, where your story matters. Here's the thing, you may not know what comes next, you may not have a plan, but each day you wake up you have something powerful, choice. The choice to sit in the sun. The choice to make your favorite breakfast. The choice to write a note to someone who crossed your mind. You don't have to wait for someone else to bring meaning into your life. You can bring it yourself. That is the most beautiful lesson I've learned. Not to wait, but to live. To live in the small, sacred moments. To live in the softness. To live in the peace that comes when you finally understand your life still holds value, your presence still brings light, and your story isn't over, even if you're walking it alone. Because alone doesn't mean unloved, and silence doesn't mean forgotten. It just means you've entered a new season. And maybe, just maybe, it's the season where you come home to the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. When everything quiets down and the world around you moves a little faster than you do, that's when the real questions begin to whisper. Does any of this still matter? Am I still part of something? Is there anything left for me to give or to feel? And the answer, my friend, is yes. Yes, it matters. Yes, you belong. Yes, there is still more life to live. You may be in a season of solitude, but you are not in a season of nothing. You're in a chapter of deep noticing, of quiet strength, of slower beauty. A chapter that asks less of you, but gives you the chance to give more to yourself. And I want you to hear this. You don't need to be surrounded by others to be valuable. You don't need a full room to be full of purpose. You don't need a busy calendar to prove your worth, because your presence is already enough. When you sit with yourself in silence, when you light a candle for no one but you, When you do something kind and no one sees it, that's not emptiness. That's authenticity, that's dignity, that's wisdom. You are living proof that a quiet life can still be a meaningful one. And if you're thinking right now, but I wish someone understood, I do. I've been in your shoes, I've walked through the silence. I've cried in kitchens and smiled through holidays I spent alone. And I'm telling you now, you are not forgotten. You are not done. You are not too late, too old, or too far behind. You are exactly where you are meant to be, and from this place, something beautiful can still grow. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's stillness. Maybe it's a gentle kind of joy that doesn't depend on anyone else to exist, but it can grow. Because you are here, and you're still breathing, so take that breath now. Let it fill your lungs. Let it remind you of how capable you still are, capable of love, capable of kindness, capable of starting again. You may never have the life you pictured in your younger years, but that doesn't mean the life you have now isn't worthy of your attention. So let yourself feel it. Let yourself soften. Let yourself begin again, not for the world, not for approval, but for your own soul. Because the truth is, being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. It can mean being available. Available to notice what others rush past. Available to hear the quiet voice within. Available to learn yourself in ways you never had time for before. And that in itself is a gift. If you've stayed with me through this message, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for not giving up on your own story. Please like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age if these words have spoken to you. Because there are others, just like you, who are looking for a sign that they're not alone in this part of life. Let's be that sign for one another. Let's be the soft place where people come to remember their value. And if no one else has said it to you today, let me be the one. You are loved. You are needed. You are still here. And I'm so glad you are.